Welcome back to MMA Oddsbreaker Fight Breakdown Show. This week we're talking about UFC Fight Night 74. Of course, Holloway versus Oliveira. This one, all weird places, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. I talked to most of these guys around the card, and to me it's like a weird spot, but it's also one of those spots where there's nothing else to do up there but basically work really, really hard and party really, really hard. There's nothing else to do up there, and so the fight's going to be a sellout. The fight's going to be astronomical. It's going to be great. But the biggest question I have for the co-main event, are we finally over the Erick Silva hype? Can we finally stop talking about it now with him and Neil Magny, or are we still got to believe this hype with Erick Silva?
I think it'll always be there, somewhat. But he's lost a lot of that. I mean, with his cardio problems, his strike defense, when he gets a little wild on the feet, there's definitely some holes in his game. So his stock has definitely dropped. But at the same time, he's ultra dangerous. He's still young enough where he's improving. Man, the guy is good in all areas of the game. So if he gets that cardio up to par a little bit, and he does get tighter on his striking game, man, the guy is so hard to stop.
I don't think he can get his cardio up, in my personal opinion, because the way that he sets himself, the way he does things, is that he's kind of like the old Jake Ellenberger, the old juggernaut Jake Ellenberger that came out there, went crazy, and would always fade in the third round because he was going, literally, he was pushing himself at 95% of maximum from the very opening bell all the way through until he just fades. And when he fades, it's not like a little fade. It's not a slow fade. It's a drop off the edge of the cliff fade. So we all saw that with Jake, and he's trying to work that out. I think Eric kind of the same way, where he can't really get in better shape because he just goes so hard the entire time that eventually, if you just weather the storm and keep your defense tight, he's going to fall apart come the second round. He's really going to slow down. And I think that's when Neil Magny takes over, because Neil's got great shape. He's got great technique. He stays on his defense. He stays tight on his takedown defense. He knows how to lean. He knows when to take breaths. The thing I learned I've been watching about Neil the last couple of fights is he knows how to take a breath. I'm getting overwhelmed. I can tie him up. I can find a space on top. I can lean against the cage. I find a place to break. So I'm kind of leaning towards Neil Magny in this one. You're saying the hype, we still have to kind of believe the hype in Erick Silva. Is he still the favorite in this thing?
Yeah, he is. He's about $170, so just under 2-1 as far as the favorite goes. Plus 150 for Magny right now. Okay. And you know what? I think it's fair because really Erick Silva is the better fighter. No question about it. I think Erick Silva is better in all areas, to be honest with you. Minus, those factors that we just pointed out with the cardio, that's a big issue. Magny has cardio for days. He puts the work in the gym. He has that type of body and just that type of feel about him that his cardio has never really been a big issue, especially when he's in shape. And you're right. The way Erick Silva goes after it, he's going to gas himself out even if he is in tremendous shape, as the fight goes. So they're completely two different athletes in that area. But overall skill for skill, Erick Silva is the better striker, I think. I think he's the more dangerous striker, obviously. He has the better jiu-jitsu game. I think he probably has the better wrestling to go along with it, even though Magny's wrestling game has improved. So really, across the board, you got to give the check marks, I think, for the most part, to Erick Silva.
But if you've got an opponent in front of you that's going to fade, it's going to fall apart cardiovascular-wise, you just have to hunt and peck and keep the round close, the first round, and make him work a lot without you really doing much, which is very easy to do. Run away a little bit, tap him a little bit, make him chase you. Going into the second round, you're going to feel him start to fall apart. So, yeah, he is better. But those things only work in the first round and a half. At about the 3-minute mark of the second round, everything goes out the window, and now all of a sudden we have a very even fight where both guys are going to be tired. Don't get me wrong, it's not like Neil's going to be fresh because he hasn't really done anything. He's going to be tired as well, but just not as tired as Erick Silva. But also then you come back to the question is, can you survive 7 minutes with Erick Silva without getting tagged? Because if you get tagged once, you might not finish the fight. But if he tags you once, that's going to hurt your cardio as well. So there's a lot of deciding factors, for me at least in this one, where it's really difficult to kind of go, okay, no, definitely. Before it's, most of our picks, it's like, no, definitely it's Erick Silva, definitely it's Neil Magny. On this one, I'm kind of tossed up. It's almost a prop bet where I'm going, hey, look, if you want this fight to end, in the first round, then you absolutely have to go with Erick Silva. If you're picking second round early, Silva, second round late, Neil Magny, or if you want to finish to go in the third round, Neil Magny. But if it goes to decision, now it's a toss-up again because either one of these guys can win a decision. So this fight for me is extremely tough. I'm going to have to leave it alone from a betting standpoint, but from a straight pick standpoint, I'm picking Neil Magny.
Yeah, you know what? You hit the nail on the head, I think. It's all about that first round. Erick Silva probably wins in the first round if he does win. If not, in round 2 and round 3, definitely favors Magny a little bit, probably on the cards as well. But it will be close because it all depends on how much of that early part of the fight, Silva can win. You're right. It could go 7 minutes. He could steal round two, have enough, juice in the tank. So it is a tough one, and it's all about the odds, I think, where you find the line. If the line where it's at now, it is difficult to bet because you're not getting a tremendous amount of value, I think, on Magny. Even though we're saying he's got a shot to win if it goes late, I still think that I think Erick Silva is going to probably overwhelm him early enough that it's too dangerous to take either side right now. And you can't lay the juice at the price either, almost 2-1. So if it drops, I think you go after Silva at a decent price. If it continues to climb, then I think you do put some money on Magny. So it's all about the line here.
Now, just from a fan point, for a fan perspective, when it comes to betting, obviously the pay-per-views get more bets put in than the fight nights, right? So we're not going to see this line move as much as we would if it was a pay-per-view, if this fight was on pay-per-view.
Well, it all depends. If there's a lot of sharp action that comes in, with max limits and, they could get down decent, you're going to see the line move drastically if it's a popular sharp side. So on fight day, when the limits are maximized and a lot of sharp action starts coming in, I mean, we could see this line go a little bit nuts one way or the other. It's still possible, even on the smaller shows.
You and I have talked about timing a lot of times on your bets because you're looking for the right line. You're looking for the best line to favor you, as the better. Of course, the house is looking for you to get the worst line so that they can make more money as the house. So is this one of those fights that I kind of need to wait to fight day to find out where the line moves to find out if it moves at all? Or is this one of those fights I got to jump on it right now, otherwise I'm gonna miss my value?
Now, it's tough to predict which way this line's going to move because, we could see sharp action, honestly, on both sides. So that's where, I think if you take it now, it's probably going to maintain around that same spot of just under 2-1 or so. So I don't know if you're going to get much better value either side. We'll see. It's really a tough one because, again, a lot of it it really depends on Erick Silva. I mean, how much confidence do you really have in Erick Silva? Magny's proven himself fairly well. Again, I think he's outclassed a little bit skill-wise, but he can win this fight. Because it doesn't matter how good you are, if you don't have that gas left in round 2 and round 3, you're probably not going to win the fight. So
I mean, look at guys like Clay Guida and Diego Sanchez, who, in my personal opinion, their technique is completely subpar compared to their cardio, and their cardio is what wins them all these fights. They get in the third round and they're bouncing all over you. And I'm not saying their technique is bad. I'm just saying in comparison to their cardio is, days, head and shoulders above where their technique is, and they're killing guys in the third round because they have so much energy. So if Erick doesn't get his shape under, he'll never be that superstar that everyone's touting him to be early in his career. Let's move on to the main event. Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway. I got to think Max is the favorite in this one. Obviously, here on MMAOddsBreaker, you can see my interview with Max Holloway as well. He talks about his training camp and what have you. I just think Max is the better all-around fighter and really a guy that needs more. It's not next week, okay? It's not going to happen next week. Don't blow us up and call me names, okay? It's not next week. He needs he needs 1 or 2 more fights and then be ready to battle Conor McGregor again. Like he said in the interview that he wanted to battle him, as soon as possible. He's a competitor. That's what he wants. He needs a little bit more time to work on his wrestling game and work on the stand-up game for a guy like Conor. But honestly, Max is one of those guys that I just think he just is being undervalued quite a bit by a lot of people. One, he lives in Hawaii, so it's tough to see him. You don't see him out a lot. He's very quiet. He stays at home quite a bit. And it's tough to kind of see how he trains. The only time you really see or hear anything about Max Holloway is fight week. So it's the only week you really get to see him. I'm assuming he's the favorite, but also are we seeing much change in the line at all from when you opened it?
Yeah, actually we have. I mean, the line, I opened at minus 165, and Holloway has since been bet up. It's not minus 240 now. So I think, outside of maybe the title type of fight or the champion type of fight matchup against Holloway, or against Oliveira, I should say, at plus 200 odds, man, it's kind of crazy because Oliveira's submission game is special. But what you're seeing here is, and why people are betting Holloway, it's your typical, basically, your grappler versus striker matchup. Holloway being the striker, Oliveira being the grappler. Now, both these guys are more well-rounded than that. Honestly, Holloway's wrestling game overall is probably a tad bit underrated. He never uses it offensively, but his takedown defense, in most cases, does him well enough where he can stand and bang. He can sprawl and brawl a little bit. Now, Oliveira, on the other hand, I think his stand-up game is actually okay, depending on the matchup as well. If he faces a guy like Holloway, sure, he's outgunned a little bit. But against other opponents, it's feasible. He can definitely score. He could definitely be a threat on the feet. I mean, his clinch work is phenomenal. He's getting a really good timing with those knees as well. So he's dangerous everywhere, but he's more well known for his grappling. So Oliveira is going to come into this fight looking to take it to the floor and have success with the submission game, and Holloway's going to look to sprawl and brawl and try to knock him out. That's the contrast of styles here that we have. And I do think the line's creeping up a little bit too much. And at plus 200, like I said, outside of maybe Oliveira being a dog to a guy like Frankie Edgar or the champion, or something like that, I think it's a little bit high, honestly. The public does not, obviously.
This is one of those weird occasions where my straight pick is Max Holloway, my betting pick is Charles, and it's usually that's weird for me. Usually I'm kind of on the same page, but really, if I got to lay money down, I got to put it on Charles because right now at plus 200, it's too good it's too much of a value for me not to put something down on it. Even though I kind of feel like that Mac's going to win this fight, but from a betting standpoint, I got to put my money on Charles. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a 5-round fight. A lot of things can happen along the way. Definitely. I think this fight does not hit the scorecards. I think we're going to see a finish either way, but it could. I mean, at the same time, we could just see a classic battle back and forth. If Oliveira can last 5 rounds on the feet, if it does play out like that on the feet, I'll be a little bit surprised because Holloway has a tendency to pick up the pace as the fight goes a little bit, and he makes life tough for you. So, and I do think there's probably a finish here. But at plus 200, yeah, I do think it's a dog or pass situation for sure.
Well, that's it for our breakdown. Remember, guys, this is a UFC Fight Night. It's Fight Night 74. So the main card is on Fox Sports 1 at 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, this Sunday coming up. And the preliminary card is on UFC Fight Pass at 6 p.m. Eastern and Fox Sports 1 at 7 p.m. Eastern. Now, I know these times get all weirded out, and they're put it on a weird day. It's on a Sunday instead of a Saturday, so people are kind of thrown off. Please remember, it's on a Sunday if you want to watch this fight. You got to check it out. I really, once again, I mean, we've been saying it every week. The matchmakers, both Joe Silva and Sean Shelby, have been putting it together. It's been amazing to call and break down and watch these fights. And really, unfortunately, the next big one, of course, is going to be the Demetrius Johnson fight in Vegas on September 5th. And that one, now that I'm in Hawaii, I can't actually go to it. And that's one of the ones I wanted to see. So they're putting together great fights. I can't wait to watch Dotson and Demetrius Johnson come up here later. Real quick, Nick, in closing, has it gotten any easier now that we're kind of in the pace and you kind of know that every time you turn on, you open up, hey, we got to break down this next fight. I got to put this line in. Is it getting easier because now the UFC has come back now for 6 months? Every single card, every single fight has been tough. Is it getting easier for you now to lay these lines out?
No, I mean, honestly, the mismatches are a lot easier to set odds on. So it's getting tough, but at the same time, I mean, you know that you got to respect the matchmaking. They are making it a lot more competitive, and that's what you want to see. You want to have, avoid those mismatches, avoid those circus type of fights out there that we see. Some of the other organizations are still doing that sort of thing, trying to draw a little bit more star power, and I understand it. I mean, from a business standpoint, you got to do that. But the UFC right now, they have the star power, and they're just matching cards great. I mean, they have been competitive. I hope they keep it up, to be honest with you. But it is a little bit more difficult for sure. The lines are going to be more competitive, but to pinpoint exactly where at gets tougher at times.
I'll give you a little bit of inside information to me. About a year ago, I was like, I could care less to watch a fight. Like, I was like, I don't really care about the matchups. They're kind of sensational. Like, it doesn't really matter for me too much. The bigger name stars are fighting, I'm watching. Otherwise, I really don't care. Now, it's like last 6 months, like we've been talking about, every single fight, every single fight. Like, Fight Pass, I buy Fight Pass. Like, you know me, I don't pay for anything. I bought Fight Pass because I want to see the prelim cards. Like, I'm buying everything now because I want to see these things. I want to see all the fights because the matchmaking is getting so much better. And really, everyone's talking about how the UFC right now, the Reebok deal is having problems. Their mainstay is fights and putting on great fights, and that's what they're doing. Every single fight from the very first prelim card on Fight Pass all the way through on pay-per-view to the very main event, even if it's a 34-second Ronda Rousey fight, is incredible. So it's like I now am back to being a full-fledged, diehard, every time, all the day fan again. A year ago I was like, I'll take it or leave it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good time, and I love cards that are matched like this, no doubt about it. And the competitive fights, I mean, from top to bottom, like I said, I hope they keep it up, and I totally understand where you're coming from. It's great to see fights like that.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. And of course, we'll be back on again next week. Enjoy yourself, guys. This is the end of our MMA Oddsbreaker fight breakdown show. We'll see you next week.